Behind America's most wholesome family lurked jaw-dropping secrets that would make your head spin faster than Alice's mixing bowl. From tragic dog deaths and secret gay love affairs to cocaine addiction and cast members making out in doghouses, the real Brady Bunch story is far steamier and more scandalous than anything that ever made it to air. Buckle up for the shocking truth about television's perfect family. Fact 1. Gene Hackman almost played Mike Brady. When most people think of Mike Brady, they picture Robert Reed's calm, patient father figure dispensing wisdom in his den. But television history almost took a dramatically different turn, because the legendary Gene Hackman was actually the first choice to play the Brady family patriarch. Series creator Sherwood Schwartz had his heart set on casting Hackman for the role of Mike Brady when the show was being developed in the late 1960s. At that time, Hackman was still a relatively unknown actor working mainly in small television roles on shows like The FBI and Route 66. He had appeared in the groundbreaking film Bonnie and Clyde in 1967, earning his first Academy Award nomination, but he was far from being a household name. The problem came when Schwartz pitched Hackman to the ABC network executives. Television studios in those days relied heavily on something called a TVQ rating, which was a statistical survey that measured how much audiences liked and recognized certain actors. Gene Hackman's TVQ rating was practically non-existent because most television viewers had never heard of him. Paramount Studios and ABC executives rejected Schwartz's choice, telling him they wouldn't even allow Hackman to audition for the part. They wanted someone with more name recognition and television experience. Instead, they chose Robert Reed, who was already under contract with Paramount and had built a solid reputation starring in the legal drama The Defenders for 4 seasons. The irony of this decision became crystal clear just a few years later. While the Brady Bunch was airing its family-friendly episodes, Gene Hackman went on to win the Academy Award for Best Actor in 1971 for his gritty performance as Detective Jimmy Popeye Doyle in The French Connection. He became one of Hollywood's most respected actors, starring in classics like The Poseidon Adventure, The Conversation, and later playing the villain Lex Luthor in the Superman movies. Sherwood Schwartz later reflected on this missed opportunity with a mixture of regret and amazement, noting that the unknown Gene Hackman with no TVQ rating had become a major movie star. Fact 2. The family dog was secretly replaced. Tiger the dog was supposed to be a beloved member of the Brady family, but behind the scenes, this furry cast member became the center of one of the show's most heartbreaking and chaotic secrets. The original Tiger, who appeared in the first season episodes, met a tragic end that the show's creators desperately tried to hide from both the cast and the audience. During the filming of the Season 1 episode called Cachoo, where Jan discovers she's allergic to Tiger, the unthinkable happened. The original dog actor was hit and killed by a florist's delivery truck while out on his evening walk with his trainer. The trainer was devastated, not just because he had lost his animal partner, but because he was making good money working on the popular television show. Faced with this terrible situation, the trainer made a desperate decision that would lead to chaos on the set. Instead of telling producer Sherwood Schwartz and the cast what had really happened, he rushed to every animal pound and pet store he could find until he located a dog that looked remarkably similar to the original Tiger. The replacement dog was close enough in appearance that nobody on the production initially noticed the switch. However, there was one major problem with this plan. While the new Tiger looked the part, he had absolutely no training or experience working on a television set. When it came time to film scenes, the untrained replacement dog would become frightened by the bright studio lights and loud noises, causing him to bolt from the set repeatedly. The situation reached a breaking point during an emotional scene where the Brady boys were supposed to say goodbye to Tiger in their bedroom. The fake Tiger refused to stay in position and kept wandering around the set, completely ignoring the trainer's commands. Producer Sherwood Schwartz finally confronted the trainer about the dog's strange behavior, and that's when the truth came out. The trainer confessed that the original Tiger was dead, and admitted he had picked up this untrained replacement from the pound on his way to the studio that morning. Fact 3. Robert Reed was gay and miserable. Robert Reed portrayed the ideal American father on television, but the man behind Mike Brady was living a completely different reality that would have shocked audiences in the 1970s. Reed was a classically trained Shakespearean actor who was secretly gay and deeply unhappy with both his career and personal life throughout the show's entire run. Reed had come from serious dramatic theater and considered himself a legitimate actor, which made his role on The Brady Bunch feel like professional torture. He constantly clashed with creator Sherwood Schwartz over what he saw as ridiculous storylines and silly visual gags that he felt were beneath his artistic training. Reed would regularly write detailed memorandums to Schwartz explaining why certain plot points didn't make sense or why combining elements of farce and satire was wrong for the show. The deeper issue was Reed's struggle with his sexual identity during an era when being openly gay could destroy an acting career. Florence Henderson, who played his television wife Carol, later revealed in interviews that Reed was an unhappy person who was suffering from having to live what she called this double life. She explained that Reed was forced to hide who he really was, and she believed this contributed to a lot of his anger and frustration on the set. Despite his personal struggles, Reed genuinely cared about his young co-stars and became a father figure to them off-camera. Many cast members knew about Reed's private life but never discussed it openly out of respect for him. Susan Olsen, who played Cindy, later said that Reed could never make peace with himself because homosexuality was so taboo at the time. Reed was diagnosed with HIV in the spring of 1991 and died on May 12, 1992, at age 59 from complications related to the virus. Even at the end, he kept his sexuality and medical conditions secret from the public, only telling a few close friends about his illness. His death certificate later revealed that he was HIV positive, finally confirming what many in Hollywood had quietly known for years. Fact 4. Greg had the hots for TV mom. One of the most awkward behind-the-scenes stories from The Brady Bunch involves Barry Williams developing a serious romantic crush on Florence Henderson, the actress who played his television mother. This wasn't just a passing teenage infatuation, but a full-blown attraction that led to some genuinely uncomfortable situations during filming. Williams was a typical hormonal teenager when the show began, and he found himself completely smitten with Henderson, who was an attractive woman in her 30s playing the role of Carol Brady. The situation became so intense that Williams actually worked up the courage to ask Henderson out on a real date, which she surprisingly agreed to attend. The two went to dinner together at a restaurant, where Williams tried his best to impress his television mother with his teenage charm. Henderson later described the evening as sweet but definitely strange, since she was very aware of the odd dynamic between them. She handled the situation with grace and kindness, treating Williams with respect while making it clear that their relationship needed to remain strictly professional and motherly. Henderson understood that Williams was just a young man figuring out his feelings, and she didn't want to hurt his ego or make him feel embarrassed about his crush. The romantic tension between them created some genuinely awkward moments during filming, especially during scenes where Greg and Carol had to interact closely on camera. Cast and crew members were aware of Williams' feelings, and it became something of an open secret on the set. Williams later admitted in interviews and in his autobiography that he had been hoping for something more than just dinner, but Henderson's mature handling of the situation helped him move past his infatuation. This unusual situation highlighted just how blurred the lines could become when young actors spent so much time together in what was supposed to be a family environment, even though they weren't actually related in real life. Fact 5. Cast members were hooking up constantly. While America watched the Brady kids interact as wholesome siblings on television, behind the scenes a very different kind of family dynamic was playing out among the young actors. Susan Olsen, who played the youngest daughter Cindy, later revealed that the cast members were constantly pairing off and engaging in romantic experimentation with each other during their time on the show. The most famous of these off-camera relationships involved Barry Williams and Maureen McCormick, who played the oldest siblings Greg and Marcia. Their attraction to each other was so intense that it actually affected their on-screen performances, with series creator Sherwood Schwartz noting that their romantic chemistry was clearly visible during filming. McCormick later wrote in her memoir about how strange it felt to be kissing someone she had to call her brother on television. But the romantic entanglements weren't limited to just the older cast members. Olsen shocked fans years later when she casually mentioned that she and Mike Lukenland, who played Bobby, used to sneak away to make out in Tiger's doghouse when they were just 9 years old. She explained that since the child actors led such sheltered lives for part of the year while filming, if there was going to be anybody to develop crushes on or experiment with dating, it would naturally be their fellow cast members. Christopher Knight, who played Peter, also got involved in the romantic musical chairs happening on set. He initially had feelings for Susan Olsen, but later shifted his attention to Eve Plum when she started developing into a teenager. Knight and Plum even had what Olsen described as a romantic evening in Knight's pickup truck, complete with candles, blankets, and beer under the stars. According to Olsen, this pattern of cast members dating each other was so common that she said, "All of us did it," at some point during the show's 5-year run, explaining that their unusual living situation naturally led to these kinds of romantic experiments among the young actors. Fact 6. Marcia was a cocaine-addicted shoplifter. Behind Marcia Brady's sweet smile and perfect blonde hair, Maureen McCormick was struggling with serious personal demons that would plague her for years after the Brady Bunch ended. The actress who played America's ideal teenage daughter battled severe depression, anxiety, and eventually developed a dangerous cocaine addiction that nearly destroyed her life. McCormick later revealed in her memoir that playing the wholesome Marcia Brady created enormous pressure and insecurity in her real life. She wrote about how she had no idea that few people are everything they present to the outside world, yet there she was, hiding the reality of her life behind what she called the unreal perfection of Marcia Brady. The fear and anxiety that gnawed at her as a teenager only got worse after the show ended, leading her to self-medicate with cocaine and prescription drugs like Quaaludes. Even during the show's filming, McCormick was apparently engaging in some questionable behavior with her friends. According to her co-star Susan Olsen, McCormick used to go shoplifting just for the thrill of it with her friend Susan Cowsill, who was part of the musical family that inspired The Partridge Family. Olsen claimed that during one of these shoplifting adventures, McCormick and Cowsill got caught by store security, but instead of facing the consequences together, McCormick panicked and ran away to hide in a car for hours, while Cowsill took all the blame for the incident. The pressures of child stardom and the impossible standard of perfection that came with playing Marcia Brady took a serious toll on McCormick's mental health. She struggled with the disconnect between her public image as the perfect Brady daughter and her private battles with depression and substance abuse. Her addiction problems continued well into adulthood, and she has spoken openly about how difficult it was to overcome the damage caused by trying to live up to an impossible ideal during her formative teenage years. Fact 7. The house's attic magically grew. One of the most glaring continuity errors in The Brady Bunch involves the mysterious transformation of the family's attic, which somehow grew from a cramped crawl space into a spacious teenage bedroom between seasons without any explanation whatsoever. This architectural impossibility became one of the show's most obvious production mistakes that sharp-eyed fans have been pointing out for decades. The inconsistency first appeared in the Season 2 episode called Our Son, the Man, when Greg decided he was too mature to share a room with his younger brothers and asked for his own private space. Carol suggested that maybe Greg could use the attic as his bedroom, but Mike quickly shot down this idea by explaining that the attic was only 2.5 feet tall, making it completely impossible for anyone to use as living space. However, by Season 4, the show's writers apparently forgot about Mike's earlier statement because they featured an entire episode called A Room at the Top, where both Greg and Marcia fought over who would get to convert the attic into their personal bedroom. Suddenly, this same attic that had been described as barely tall enough to crawl through was now shown as a spacious room where full-grown adults could stand upright with plenty of headroom to spare. The transformed attic became Greg's groovy teenage bachelor pad, complete with wood paneling, psychedelic posters, a lava lamp, and all the 70s decor that made it one of the most memorable rooms in television history. The space was so roomy that Greg could comfortably fit a bed, desk, chairs, and all his belongings without any problem. This dramatic change in the attic's dimensions was never addressed or explained by the show's characters, leaving viewers to wonder if Mike Brady had somehow performed some miraculous renovation work between seasons, or if the writers simply hoped that nobody would notice this major inconsistency in the house's layout. Fact 8. Barry Williams filmed high on marijuana. Barry Williams, who played the wholesome oldest son Greg Brady, wasn't always as clean-cut as his television character appeared to be. Williams later admitted that he experimented with marijuana during his teenage years while filming the show, and on at least one memorable occasion, he showed up to work completely under the influence of the drug. Williams described this incident in detail during a Brady Bunch convention talk in 2014, explaining how he had been smoking marijuana with some friends during what he thought was his day off from filming. The 17-year-old actor was enjoying his high when he suddenly received an unexpected phone call from the show's producers, telling him that he needed to come to the studio immediately because they needed to film some scenes. Instead of admitting that he was in no condition to work, Williams decided to go to the set anyway, figuring he could somehow pull off his performance despite being completely stoned. He arrived at the Paramount Studios lot while still feeling the full effects of the marijuana, and had to act out scenes as Greg Brady, while trying to hide his altered state from the cast, crew, and directors. Looking back on this experience years later, Williams admitted that it was not one of his smarter decisions as a young actor. He told the audience at the convention that he quickly learned an important lesson from this incident, saying, "I'm a much better actor when I am completely sober than when I'm high." This confession revealed just how much the young Brady actors were experimenting with typical teenage behavior behind the scenes, even while they were supposed to be portraying America's most wholesome family on television. Williams's honesty about his marijuana use showed that the pressures and temptations of being a teenage actor in Hollywood during the 1970s were very real, even for someone playing such an innocent character. Fact 9. Tiger's collar was nailed to the floor. After the original Tiger died, and was secretly replaced with an untrained dog from the pound, the production team faced a serious problem during one of the most emotional scenes in the show's history. The replacement Tiger simply would not cooperate during filming, leading to one of the most desperate and bizarre solutions ever implemented on a television set. The crisis occurred during the filming of the Season 1 episode Catchu, which featured a heartbreaking scene where the Brady boys had to say goodbye to Tiger in their bedroom because Jan was supposedly allergic to the family dog. This was meant to be a touching moment that would tug at viewers' heartstrings, but the untrained replacement dog had absolutely no interest in participating in the emotional farewell. Every time the cameras started rolling, the fake Tiger would bolt from the set, completely ignoring the trainer's commands and ruining take after take of this crucial scene. The dog was terrified by the bright studio lights, loud equipment noises, and all the unfamiliar people surrounding him, which made him want to escape rather than lie calmly on the floor as the script required. Producer Sherwood Schwartz was watching thousands of dollars tick away as the expensive television production ground to a halt because of one uncooperative dog. Time was running out, and they desperately needed to get this scene filmed to stay on schedule. The solution they came up with was both practical and shocking in its simplicity. With the help of a key grip from the crew, the production team physically nailed Tiger's collar to the bedroom floor, making it impossible for the frightened animal to run away during filming. This drastic measure finally allowed them to complete the emotional goodbye scene, though Schwartz later felt compelled to assure everyone that no dog was actually hurt during this unusual filming process. The nailed collar was apparently secure enough to keep Tiger in place but loose enough that he wasn't injured by the constraint. Fact 10. The show inspired by a 4-line newspaper filler. One of television's most beloved family sitcoms was born from the most unlikely source imaginable. A tiny 4-line statistical filler item buried deep in the Los Angeles Times that most readers probably skipped right over without giving it a second thought. This small piece of data would eventually grow into a cultural phenomenon that defined American family entertainment for generations. In 1965, series creator Sherwood Schwartz was casually reading through the newspaper when his eye caught a brief statistical report that stated 31% of all marriages in the United States involved people who had children from previous marriages. The statistic was just a simple filler piece, the kind of minor news item that newspapers use to fill empty space at the bottom of pages when they don't have enough content to complete a column. Most people would have read this statistic and immediately forgotten about it, but Schwartz had a different reaction entirely. He realized that this seemingly insignificant number actually represented what he called a remarkable sociological change happening in American society. Schwartz understood that 31% meant that approximately 1/3 of all marriages were creating blended families, which was a huge shift in how American families were structured. This single statistic sparked Schwartz's imagination and made him wonder what kind of television show could explore the dynamics of these newly blended families. He began developing the concept that would eventually become the Brady Bunch, originally planning to call the series Mine and Yours, to reflect the idea of two separate families coming together. Schwartz later said that it was very rare for a writer to know exactly where their ideas come from, but in the case of the Brady Bunch, he could pinpoint the exact moment of inspiration to that brief newspaper item. That tiny 4-line statistic in the Los Angeles Times became the foundation for a show that would run for 5 seasons and continue entertaining families through reruns for over 50 years. Fact 11. The cast had to pay to park. Despite appearing on what would become one of television's most iconic family shows, The young Brady Bunch actors faced a harsh reality that revealed just how poorly they were being compensated for their work. The child stars were not only underpaid for their performances, but they were also forced to pay for parking at the very studio lot where they showed up to work every single day. This parking situation became one of the most insulting examples of how little respect the studio showed for the young performers who were helping to create their hit television series. While adult actors with more established careers and better agents might have had parking included as part of their contract negotiations, the Brady kids had no such leverage and were treated more like regular employees than valuable talent. Susan Olsen, who played Cindy Brady, later revealed this embarrassing detail about their working conditions during interviews where she discussed the behind-the-scenes realities of filming the show. The fact that these children had to reach into their own pockets to pay parking fees just to come to work highlighted how the studio was nickel and diming the very people who were making them money. This parking fee situation was particularly frustrating because it represented the broader pattern of how poorly the child actors were being treated financially. The Brady kids were not making the kind of money that people might assume came with being on a popular television show, and having to pay for basic necessities like parking added insult to injury. The parking fee requirement also demonstrated the harsh business realities of working in Hollywood. Even for children who were part of a beloved family-friendly program, while audiences at home saw the Brady kids as part of a perfect, loving family, the reality behind the cameras was that these young actors were dealing with the same kind of workplace issues that any underpaid employee might face, including having to pay for the privilege of showing up to do their jobs. Fact 12. Christopher Knight felt prostituted by his mother. Christopher Knight's journey to becoming Peter Brady began under circumstances that would haunt him for years, revealing the darker side of child stardom that audiences never saw on their television screens. Knight later opened up about how his entry into acting was driven not by his own dreams or talents, but by his family's desperate financial situation. When Knight was just 10 years old, his family was struggling with serious money problems that put enormous pressure on everyone in the household. His father was unemployed and unable to find steady work, while his mother was frantically searching for ways to support the family and keep them financially afloat during this difficult period. It was during this crisis that Knight's mother saw an opportunity in the entertainment industry and pushed her young son into auditioning for acting roles, not because he had expressed any interest in performing, but because she saw it as a potential solution to their financial troubles. Knight successfully landed the role of Peter Brady, which did indeed provide the income his family desperately needed. However, looking back on this experience as an adult, Knight revealed the emotional toll that this situation took on him during a candid interview on Oprah, Where Are They Now? He described feeling completely exploited by the circumstances, saying, "I'm feeling totally prostituted at that point by my mom. I think in a way I totally was, and by her own admission it was, and that she was sorry about it." Knight also revealed that his parents actually hated the Brady Bunch because they came from more serious artistic backgrounds. His father was a stage actor and his mother was an artist, and they both felt that television wasn't where real actors were supposed to work. This created an additional layer of conflict for young Christopher, who was not only being used to solve his family's financial problems, but was also being pushed into a career that his parents looked down upon professionally. Fact 13. Alice never had a bathroom. One of the most puzzling oversights in the Brady house design was the complete absence of any bathroom facilities for Alice Nelson, the live-in housekeeper who worked and lived with the family for the entire run of the show. Despite the fact that 9 people were sharing this house on a daily basis, the set designers somehow forgot that their full-time maid would need her own private bathroom. The Brady house was shown to have multiple bathrooms for the family members, including the famous Jack and Jill bathroom that connected the boys' and girls' bedrooms upstairs, as well as a master bathroom for Mike and Carol. However, throughout all 5 seasons of the show, Alice's bathroom was never once shown or even mentioned, creating a logistical mystery that sharp-eyed fans have been questioning for decades. This oversight becomes even more strange when you consider that Alice's tiny bedroom was featured in several episodes, showing viewers her small living quarters located near the kitchen and laundry room area. The set designers took the time to create Alice's bedroom space and show her personal belongings and decorations, but they apparently never considered where she would handle her basic daily needs. The missing bathroom situation would have been particularly awkward in real life, since it would mean that Alice would have had to use either the children's bathroom upstairs or somehow share the master bathroom with Mike and Carol, both of which would have been highly inappropriate arrangements for a live-in employee. A house with 9 residents would clearly need at least 3 full bathrooms to function properly, making Alice's missing facilities not just an oversight, but a serious design flaw. This bathroom mystery has become one of those classic television inconsistencies that fans love to point out, highlighting how sometimes the practical realities of daily life got overlooked in favor of creating the sets that were most important for the show's storylines. Fact 14. The backyard was padded carpet, not grass. What appeared to be the Brady family's sunny California backyard was actually one of television's most cleverly disguised indoor sets, designed with child safety as the top priority rather than realistic outdoor authenticity. The green surface that looked like grass or astroturf to television audiences was actually thick, padded felt carpet that had been specially installed on a soundstage at Paramount Studios. This unusual flooring choice was made specifically to protect the young Brady actors during the many physical comedy scenes and play sequences that took place in the backyard throughout the show's 5-season run. The production team knew that the child performers would be doing a lot of running, jumping, falling, and general roughhousing during these outdoor scenes, so they wanted to make sure that any tumbles or accidents would result in soft landings rather than serious injuries. The padded carpet solution was particularly visible in episodes where the Brady kids were playing sports, riding bikes, or engaging in other active games that might result in someone taking a spill. Sharp-eyed viewers can sometimes spot the artificial nature of this surface, especially in scenes where the grass appears to have seams or looks unusually uniform compared to real outdoor landscaping. This safety-first approach was typical of how the Brady Bunch production handled the welfare of its young cast members, showing that the studio was willing to sacrifice some visual realism in order to create a safer working environment for the children. The felt carpet was thick enough to cushion falls but still looked convincing enough on camera to maintain the illusion that the Brady family had a typical suburban backyard. The fake grass became most obvious in certain episodes, particularly one called Bobby's Hero from 1973, where the artificial nature of the green flooring is clearly visible to anyone who knows what to look for, revealing the clever but practical deception that kept the young actors safe during filming. Fact 15. Missing parents were never explained. The most glaring mystery in the Brady Bunch was also the most fundamental question about the family's background. What exactly happened to Mike's first wife and Carol's first husband, the biological parents of the 6 Brady children? Throughout the entire 5-season run of the show, this crucial piece of family history was completely ignored, creating a strange void at the heart of what was supposed to be America's most relatable blended family. The show's opening theme song cheerfully explained that Mike was a man named Brady who was busy with 3 boys of his own, and Carol was a lovely lady who was bringing up 3 very lovely girls, but it never once addressed how these 2 single parents came to be raising their children alone. This deliberate omission was particularly strange for a series that was specifically created to explore the dynamics of blended families in American society. Creator Sherwood Schwartz originally intended for Carol to be divorced, which would have provided a clear explanation for her single status, but the television network objected to featuring a divorced woman as the show's maternal figure. The executives felt that divorce was too controversial for a family-friendly program in the late 1960s. However, instead of making Carol a widow like Mike, the writers chose to leave her marital history completely ambiguous. This decision created an awkward situation where neither Mike's deceased wife nor Carol's absent first husband were ever mentioned, referenced, or even acknowledged to have existed. The Brady children never talked about their biological parents, never visited graves, never looked at old photographs, and never seemed to have any memories or mementos from their lives before Mike and Carol got married. The absence of any explanation became so noticeable that it was eventually addressed as a joke in the Brady Bunch movie from 1995, where Carol actually asks Tiger, "Whatever happened to that dog?" in a moment of self-aware humor about the show's many unexplained disappearances.